Hello, Mr. Hausler here. This video is for Chapter 8, Exponents and Functions. This video is more on functions and what are functions. So we're going to talk about what functions are. We have function machines, function notation, function mapping, and a vertical line test. There's more under here that I'm going to scroll down to later, but function is basically a fancy word for an equation or an expression. And a function has just a rule that if I put an input in, I get only one output. So this is a function machine. You'll see these in our textbook. You'll see us working through these. So if I give you an example like this, y equals x plus 2. If I input a 3 into this, I get an output of 5. So if I put in a 3, I get out a 5. I get only one output. That checks it off as, yeah, that's a function. Okay. Now if I were to give you, say this, okay, y equals the square root of x. If I were to go ahead and put a 16 into this, I'm going to put an input of 16. So if I put a 16 in here, I don't get one output, I actually get two outputs. That would be a plus or minus 4. So therefore, square root of x is not a function. So that's the slight difference between a function and not a function. Function, every input gets you only one output, and then not a function would be if I put an input in and it spits out two outputs. So I'm looking here, function machine, we can see function notation, y equals f of x. The function in terms of x as the input. So that's just a function notation, just a way of writing it and communicating it. You'll hear me guys say it. I'll say y equals f of x, and f of x is just a fancy way of saying y. Okay, it's just a different way to notate it and say it. So I could really read this as y equals 5x minus 7, because this is just a fancy way of saying y. What's the function if I input x? The function is f of x minus 7. Y equals f of x, or 5 of x minus 7. Now we have mapping notation. So every input has to have one output. So this is just mapping it. I input in a 1, it gives me out a D. I put in a 2, it gives me out a D. That's actually okay, because the x is only getting one output. I put in a 3, I get a C. That is a function. Down here, not a function. Put in a 1, I get a capital D. Put in a 2, I get a capital B and a capital C. It's two outputs. Can't have two outputs, so that's why it fails as a function. Now, we'll also get into graphing functions and seeing if they pass a vertical line test. And vertical line test is you just use a vertical line and sort of just scan over, and you got to make sure you only land on one part of the graph. So this one passes. If I took that red line and just scanned it across, I would never hit two coordinate points at the same time. Passed, this is an example of when it fails. I scan this vertical line, I'm still okay, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. Boom, right there. It's hitting the graph at 3 different places. So that makes it fail the vertical line test. So pretend that that is an x value of -5. -5 is mapping out a y value of, say, 7, a y value of 0, and a y value of -3. So it's mapping out a 7, a 0, and a -3. That's making it fail the vertical line test. It's mapping it out to more than just one output. I'm going to scroll down, there's a little bit more on this. Sorry about that, back again. So, and always feel free to fast forward to that video for that part next time. Sometimes we'll have to give you a table as a way of communicating a function, and you'll have to determine whether it's a function or not a function. So these are my inputs, and I would just make sure that all my inputs only give me one output. Input, one output, input, one output, input, one output. So this one actually is good. It's good. Every single input is getting its own separate output. Now when I come over here, I got my input outputs. Okay, I'm looking at those. I have to notice that there's actually a 1 and a 1 right there. I have to make sure that that 1 is only mapping to one output. So right here I'm mapping it to a 2. When I put it in again, it should go back to a 2 again. But if you look, I put in that 1, it's now mapping to a 5. So again, 1 is mapping to 2 outputs. If I graphed it, it would be graphing like 1, 2, and 1, 5. It would fail the vertical line test. It wouldn't work. So that's why this is not a function. These can get kind of tricky with a table, but just slow it down and maybe make sure you map them out.